Hello and welcome to your lesson on reviewing peers' essays, also known as peer review, peer edit. You're going to be working with a partner this week to look at a draft of your paper. So that's why I'm having you watch this in advance before we dive into that. So let's get started. So just to quickly review what we're going to talk about, it's a quick lecture. It's not going to take me very long. This will probably be the quickest one of the semester, but it's still very important. This just goes over the ground rules, so to speak, for peer review and how I would like you to conduct peer review. I'm also going to talk briefly about why peer review is important. And there's a video that's linked in the description for this video called No One Writes Alone, and it's by MIT. And the professors and students talk about peer review and give some examples of how a successful peer review is conducted. So the importance of peer revision, a lot of students don't take this seriously. They think it's just kind of a free day in class when we're face-to-face versus remote to kind of read over each other's work and give some lame feedback and say good job and then move on with their day. But this is really something that you're going to have to do in the real world. When you get into your job, and you may already be doing this in some of your jobs, is that you have to review other people's work and give them constructive criticism on it to make it better. So I do this almost every day. Somebody sends me either a strategic plan or a workshop draft or something like that, a syllabus to review, and I have to give them peer feedback. You also do this in observations. I conduct observations for part-time teachers, and I have to give them constructive criticism. So this is something you'll have to do. It may not be reading papers, but you'll have to do this at some point in your job. This also helps us understand the process that peer-reviewed journal articles go through. And we'll be talking about those in coming weeks in the course if we haven't done so already. So those peers are people that are in the same field doing a review of somebody else's work, and again, offering them constructive criticism to make it better. So we're not looking to tear people down. We're looking to help our peers make their work better. So that's what I want you to remember, that the more feedback you get on something, the better your end product is going to be. I spend time looking at your essays, obviously, and looking at your outlines or drafts, depending on what class it is. And I can only spend maybe 5 to 10 minutes on a paper, whereas a peer review could take a little bit longer. You could spend 20, 25 minutes with someone looking at your paper. This also, I think most importantly, helps us learn how to identify errors in our own work. It's very easy to identify something that doesn't seem right in somebody else's work, but in our own work, it's a little bit more difficult. So this helps you learn the process of identifying errors and how to fix them. The key for a successful peer review is constructive feedback. We're not saying, not that anybody would do this, but we're not saying this sucks, this is terrible, you need to rewrite the whole thing. We're giving constructive feedback. We can focus on some things that the author needs to work on, obviously, but we also want to look at strengths. Whenever I give feedback on your work, I'm going to say, you did these 3 things well, here's 3 things you can work on. It may not be 3, it might be 2, depending on the length of the assignment. The point is that I focus on strengths and weaknesses so that you know what you're doing well. And usually I point those out first, and then we talk about, okay, these were our wins for this paper. What can we work on and make better for the next paper? And the best way to do that is a pens-off approach. Now, if you're in the remote class, it's a little bit different than being face-to-face. So you're actually going to do Canvas peer review. And there's a tool in Canvas that will let you do that. What I don't want you to do, obviously you have to write on the person's paper. What I don't want you to do is go in and fix every single little mistake for that person. Start to just point out some things that you see. We want to look for what's called higher order concerns. So is their thesis effective? Is their paper argumentative? Is it addressing, the assignment? Is it organized? Things like that. Are there sources present? Are they using sources appropriately? And then you can look at some of those minor issues too, or lower order concerns like citing, spelling, grammar. But I don't want you to go in and just destroy somebody's paper and mark up everything. Look at it holistically and see what are some general things this person could work on. Because you going in and fixing it, 1, it takes a heck of a lot more time, and 2, that person's not learning anything by you just going in and putting commas or semicolons or fixing spelling. We want this to be a learning experience. So you can offer suggestions for revision, but never correct somebody else's work. You can say, I noticed that you use commas a little too frequently. And maybe point out an example of where that is and how they might fix that. But don't go in and fix every comma, or that's just an example, or every time a mistake occurs. And you'll see I do that too. I'm not going to correct every single time you do a citation wrong. I might point it out once or twice, then it's up to you to learn where those mistakes are, how to find them, how to fix them. And that's where this comes in, of the point I made on the last slide about learning how to revise our own work. So again, offer suggestions, but don't correct someone's entire paper for them. That's not peer review. Peer correcting. Okay. So you also want to reflect on your peer's paper before you leave any comments. So what I suggest you do is read through it first, read through their paper, and then go back and leave comments, because you might leave a comment about something that appears later in the paper. So make sure that you are reading the whole paper first, and then you go back and leave comments. This says to leave feedback using the worksheet provided. In Canvas, I will give you some questions to look at. Again, this is for face-to-face and remote. So if you're in the remote, there's not obviously going to be a worksheet, because we don't have one. I can't hand you a worksheet if we're meeting remotely. But I'll leave some questions for peer review that you can answer about their paper. You don't have to use them. Just make sure the criticism is constructive. Once you get your paper back with your peer feedback, read through their suggestions and comments. A big part of learning to write really well is learning how to accept criticism. And that's something that's really difficult for a lot of us, myself included. I have a hard time taking criticism. I'm much better at it now than I used to be, but it is difficult to take that criticism and implement it. And you don't have to implement everything your peer says. Take everything with a grain of salt and just consider it and see if it might work. If it's like grammar things and they're correct, then obviously you might want to fix that. But if they're making a suggestion about your thesis and it doesn't sit right with you, that's okay. But think about it. Don't just automatically shut down any kind of feedback that you're getting. Compare your peer feedback with my feedback that you get, and then make an educated decision about what to do with that part of the paper. Okay. Last part, we're just going to quickly review. Like I said, this is a short lesson. We learned about the importance of conducting an effective peer review. There's lots of reasons why we do it. It's not a day off for your teacher. We do it for pedagogical reasons, and pedagogical just means kind of the philosophy of teaching. This is something that's very helpful for students and that students tend to enjoy. I just did a virtual peer review with a class today, the day I'm recording this, and it went really well. So take it seriously. Don't just read through the paper and write good job, or you won't get credit for doing the peer review. You really have to give that constructive criticism and be willing to take it as well. As I said earlier, make sure you watch that Nobody Writes Alone video. It's not long. I think it's like 7 or 8 minutes. But it'll give you an idea of what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. Like I said, it's short, sweet, and to the point. Enjoy your peer review. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next lesson.